Okay, next up we have James K. Zimmerman, a frequent Pushcart Prize nominee. James K. Zimmerman's work appears in Chicago Quarterly Review, December, Folio, Lumina, Nimrod, Pallades, Rattle, Read, and elsewhere. He's the author of Little Miracles, Family Cookout, which is the winner of the Jesse Bryce Niles Prize, and The Further Adventures of Zake Patriarch Dogen. Is that right? Dogen, sorry. His poetry is also featured on websites such as the Poetry Foundation, American Life and Poetry, and elsewhere. He values his neurodivergence as an essential wellspring of his creative inspiration. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Last time I did a reading, I had one of these, and it took about 15 minutes for me to figure out how to get it on. And I was looking around for my roadie, but he didn't show up. Thank you, Kim, for inviting Vanessa and me. And Vanessa, wonderful stuff, humor, fascinating. You've had a really interesting life, right? I asked you, was the strangest one North Carolina? And you agreed. Stranger than Nepal and, Bhutan. So, I'm going to read some poems from the book that just came out a little while ago, and then I will read some from a book that will be coming out next year. So Dogen was a 13th century Zen monk who essentially founded the Soto school of Zen. These poems are persona poems, that is, poems that are in the first person but not me. In other words, they are Dogen speaking, essentially. And Dogen's idea, which was pretty revolutionary at the time, is that sitting meditation itself is enlightenment, that there's not a separation between any experience and any other, and that the present moment is everything, which is typical of Buddhism in general. And also that everything is changing, that impermanence is the only thing that exists through time. And I think that's expressed in the epigram to the book, which is from Dogen. Each moment is all being. Each moment is the entire world. Reflect now whether any being or any world is left out of the present moment. And so this first poem, I imagined what Dogen would say if he were doing meditation instruction. And meditation, for those of you who are familiar, well, and those of you who aren't, I don't know, is a combination of concentration and focus, usually on the breath, and also a sort of panoramic awareness that gets developed out of that. And so what they call bare attention, which is as present as you can without the intervening variable of thought. The other thing is that this is kind of about silent meditation, but meditation is never silent. There's always either stuff going on in your head or stuff going on around you. And so part of the awareness piece of it is to be as aware of all of it as you can. This is called meditation, still life with bell. Beginning. Bell rings once. Waves of breath, breath of bell, dying away. Shuffle, sigh, settle discomfort in the cushion, comfort in whispers of thought. Listen to the waking. Middle, waves of air create bark, bark creates dog. Waves of air create whistle, whistle creates bird. Listen to the rhythm, rhythm creates pulse, pulse creates heart. Listen to the air, listen to the waking. Breath of sound, sound of breath, drift of thought, back to breath. Listen to the waking. End. Bell rings 3 times. Beginning waves of bell, breath of bell. Rustle of sleeve, sigh, creak of knee, whisper of voice, clearing of throat, clearing Listen to the waking up. Listen to the waking. Listen to the waking up. Listen to the waking breath of bell dying. Listen to the waking up, awakening. And there's a concept called wabi-sabi, which essentially means that everything has its demise inherent in it from the beginning. So like a pottery cup has its cracks and shards in it when it's being thrown, when it comes out of the kiln. Everything falls apart, everything ages, including us. Surprise, right? And there's a kind of joy to be developed in being able to accept that and let go. So this is again Dogen in meditation instruction. It's called house sitting. Let the bell ring clear. Let floorboards grumble in rasping voice. Let walls shed plaster and flakes of snow. Let rafters crack like aging bones. Let branches thrum on a mossy roof. Let shoulders rise with breath to breath. Let the bell ring clear and ring again. Let a breeze slide over a windowsill. Let the children laugh. Let the catbirds sing. And so Dogen, being in the 21st century as he is, um, was fascinated with our culture and how things have developed and everything. And in Buddhism, there is no such thing as a self. There is nothing that we can point to that exists stable through time. That the only thing that exists is impermanence. So he was fascinated by the fact that we're developing self-driving cars. So he went to a car dealer and decided to take a ride. This is called Dogen Takes a Ride in a Self-Driving Car. But Dogen asked the salesman, where was the self when the car was a thought? When the thought was a sketch? When the sketch was design? Where was the self on the assembly line in Alabama, on a truck from Mexico, a ship from China? Is the self in the carbon and iron of steel, in the gleam of chrome, the slick skin of PVC? Where is the self in the cowhide of custom bucket seats? Where do the seats go when the car is incinerated? Is the window then still sand? Was the sand always glass? Where is the self that thinks it can drive itself? In GPS, Bluetooth, ABS, cruise control? Show me the self before the doors were installed. Show me the self after the car is totaled, after the crusher comes. Show me the self after the parts return to earth and sky. At which point, the car dealer completely gave up his job and went and cooked fries at McDonald's, like something like that. So the book that is coming out next year is called Unbroken Circle, Unending Thread. And it's essentially a meditation on the seasons, mostly lyric poems, starting with winter and going through the seasons, and then ending up with an epilogue that's kind of a winter into spring, with a focus on the natural world, but also on existential issues and with an undercurrent of climate change. So I'll read some poems from that book, taking you through the seasons. The first one is a winter one. This morning, snow began to fall sleepily, each flake a mandala, kaleidoscopic in the early light, inviting me to fall with it, become frozen ground below. Now it blows with blinding speed, 10,000 voices speaking as one, a Greek chorus foreshadowing silence. And this one is called February 21st, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Lambent clouds play freeze tag among branches relieved of last week's glassine sleeves of ice. Like vegans at a pig roast, no one knows quite what to make of this. When I fill the feeder, winter birds say, "No thanks, I'm on a low-carb diet," their hungry eyes in search of sleepy grubs and earthworms instead. Unsure what to sniff first, rich smells of earth, spoor, and rabbits rising to his twitching nose, the black lab wonders, "Where's the white stuff? Where's the white stuff?" In confusion, oaks and maple logs wait impatiently on the woodpile for their turn to burn away the chill of an unexpected blizzard. "How much time do you think we have to hang around?" they ask, feeling sodden rot begin to crawl into their cambium. And I know I should be grateful for this shorts and t-shirt afternoon, but still I feel a pressing need to shield my eyes from the sun's unrelenting glare. This next poem is an experience that took place in spring. A lot of my poems, Wendell Berry, wonderful poet, wrote a whole book called Window Poems. And it was just sitting at his window at his desk looking out, and the whole book is what he saw. And a lot of my poems end up being, I think, looking out, in this book anyway, looking out the window and noticing things, and sometimes being quite surprised. This one is called Red Tail. On my neighbor's careful yard, a red-tailed hawk dissects a young squirrel, pausing casually between pulls at the flesh to glance skyward, contemplating this realm he reads as closely as a favorite lyric poem. To him, lawns are not to be overflown, but examined with a poet's eye. An iambic breeze riffling irises, the internal rhyme of pink and crimson azaleas, line breaks of a flagstone walk, quatrains of a picket fence, until one turn of phrase, a slight movement near a rose bush, tells the broad-beamed raptor exactly where to dive and when to extend talons to grasp and savor the fierceness of the final stanza. And this is a summer poem. Jan and I were in Maine a number of years ago. We went to Ogunquit, and there's a wonderful beach there. Well, I should say there was. Who knows? It may have eroded by now, but with dunes and so on. And it was late in the day, and so that's what this poem addresses. It's called Ogunquit. On the voluptuous, pregnant belly of the dunes, children giggle and shriek, gulls swoop and soar in the graying sunset. Teeming masters of mayhem and cacophony, they share a sworn refusal to let the late summer day die. Fathers, as if to join the game, hold out their arms and smile, shout, laugh. But the children know it is a trap to scoop them up and take them home, give them food and baths to warm them up and calm them down. So they run away, diving and rolling on the fish-breath sand, shrieking and swooping with the crazy-eyed gulls at the edge of the clamoring waves, just beyond the outstretched reach of waning daylight and one last time. This is also, I guess, what would sort of qualify as a window poem, something I watched and then went outside afterwards. It's called La La La, The Life Goes On, and the epigram is Obladi Oblada, Lennon-McCartney. Between my clapboard garage and the buzz-cut lawn next door, a house finch graces the fence. Effusive song interweaving with tendrils of clematis rehearsing for their autumn debut. One of this year's squirrel crop dive bombs the bird feeder from a pine bough above like a cat, four paws extended earthwards, chases the others in run-on sentences to keep the shaken loose sunflower seeds and millet for itself. A solo cardinal in mottled camo clutches a red maple branch, calling, "Here, here," to reassure her scarlet mate their speckled eggs are safe. I sit on the back steps, mug of tea in hand, a thin scrim of tranquility settling into my spine, my breath, my eyes. After the neighbor's fat black cat crossed my path this morning, a dove's last flutter suspended from its teeth, gray feathers scattered on the grass. We all try our best to forget, but at dusk, a lone mourning dove will still be waiting on the ridgeline of the neighbor's house, cooing softly to herself, dressed in tan and gray and grief. And then this one is early fall, and you'll see that it's a kind of sequel to the one I just read. And it kind of expresses my conflict between understanding and wanting to accept the natural order of things and the ways in which that natural order of things troubles me. It's called The Dilemma Regarding the Murderous Black Cat. I know I should be tolerant of the black cat's claws, their stark precision as she leaps from the dark lattice of boxwood branches. But instead, I imagine the arc of the rock I would hurl at her twitching tail. I know I should accept the piercing sharpness of teeth sunk into a nuthatch neck, the heap of gray feathers she leaves behind like a poor man's gravesite. But I find myself conjuring a snare to hogtie her legs. I know I should admire the cool fire in her amber eyes as she proudly ambles off, the weight of a dove in her jaws slowing her pace. But I envision the unerring flight of an arrow. I know she's just doing her job in the ebb and flow, the inevitable interweave of life and death. But I relish the time she dropped a catbird and ran in panic to the copse of brambles across the street when I yelled, "What the fuck?" I was sure the limp gray bird was dead as he lay there, but he rose, shook cat spit off his wings, flitted to safety in the hemlock's nodding boughs, and sat practicing the sudden bark of my voice. And this is then a sort of late fall poem. I have a viburnum, a double file viburnum out in the yard, and it's supposed to flower in the spring, but the squirrels eat all the buds, and so I spray it with capsicum or something like that to try to get them. And in the last few years, it has also flowered this time of year, and it's fascinating to me and suggests something to do with climate change and its adaptability too. So this is called Second Chance, and I'll read this and then one more poem. I don't know why the double file viburnum has decided to lay out a new crop of blossoms this week on a backdrop of maroon leaves about to fall, except it's 73 degrees and sunny today and has been all week. And maybe the woody old bush figured, what the hell, might as well try once more before the frost shuts me down. Remembering spring buds sprayed with sriracha to keep squirrels from gobbling them all before they had a chance to challenge the chill winds and late sleet of April. And after that, blooms didn't really come on in full force. So maybe now, since it's been so hot, probably from too much CO2, the leaves are determined to hold on, and juice still pumps up through the cambium to give twigs one last chance to remind fat squirrels in November's leaf mold who really runs the show. So, what the hell, the ancient creature reckons, branches wagging in the breathy breeze. If this is global warming, bring it on. And I just want to again thank Kim and thank Vanessa and thank the massive crowds for coming. Much appreciated. And Ula for filming. So in meditation, Pema Chodron, who is a wonderful meditation teacher, talks about, a lot of people recommend that if you're meditating and you start to drift off, you're supposed to say the word think or thought or something like that. I've never been able to do that. So Pema Chodron suggested use the word stay, which I thought was great. So you kind of drift off and you go stay and you come back. Drift off, you go stay and come back. And then for me, I drifted off and said stay. And then I saw this puppy running around the room, and got totally hijacked by that. So a couple of caveats though. The puppy is a schnauzer in this poem. I don't have anything against schnauzers, really, but I just like the word. And poets will do that, right? Just the word sounds good. And the other thing that is in the writing of this poem, no dogs were eaten. Just want to let you know. This is called Sitting Meditation with Schnauzer Puppy. And the epigram is stay, stay, just stay, from Pema Chodron. The vision of a schnauzer puppy chewing up the furniture, bits of couch fluff and chair splinters all over the living room floor, hijacked my mind again this morning, dragging my attention away from counting breaths or chanting "Be here now" and wishing for the enlightenment of all beings everywhere. It's funny, since I don't even like schnauzers, the name schnauzer sounding like some kind of hot dog. I'll have the schnauzer with mustard and sauerkraut and a side of slaw, please. If I did have a schnauzer, which I wouldn't like, I would name it Mitten, or better, Bitten, like Bitte, German for please, as in, please stop eating the couch, or please stop gouging the antique spindleback rocker chair, or please stop making me obsess about you so I can't attain one-pointed tranquil mind today. But fortunately, I don't have a schnauzer, so my couch and chair are still intact. And I don't have to take some out-of-control puppy for a walk 4 times a day, so it gets all worked up, sniffing where other dogs peed, and then I have to pick up poop with little plastic bags after it chewed up the furniture all morning, interfering with my focus on my breath and the feeling of oneness with all beings everywhere, except schnauzers. Thank you very much. Anyone want to read? It's an open mic, right? No?
Do you want to do a Q&A?
Q&A question? Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have questions? I have a question for you.
Okay.
What kind of dog are you going to get next?
Well, that's a really good question. We had an absolutely wonderful dog named Sparky, which was named by our daughter. He was a border terrier, and he was the smartest dog I've ever had. And I've had a lot of different kinds of pets, other dogs, raccoons, possums, snakes. I was a nature counselor. But he learned yoga. He could do down dog. And he and Chloe would play hide and seek. And they played this game where they would run around the house like crazy, and then with Sparky behind Chloe, and then Chloe would stop and turn around like this, and then tiptoe over him, and then kept tiptoeing, and he would tiptoe behind her, I swear, okay? And then at some moment, they would start crazily running around the house again, and then they'd stop and do this thing again. And so anyway, it's hard to get another dog after that one, particularly not a schnauzer.
Can I ask? Sorry. Do you have a question?
Go ahead.
How did you come up with the idea of this next book? Where did that come from?
That's a great question. I usually write the poems and then put the book together, as opposed to conceptualizing the book and then writing from that. So the book is poems that I wrote over a number of years, and then realized that I wanted to put something together that reflected the seasons and existential issues and climate change. So it kind of came together like that.
And some of the other poems in the book about climate change. So what are you kind of I mean, I think those are so delicately written. They're wonderful. And I'm really interested in climate change and the way that we are adapting and not adapting.
Yeah.
Because we aren't. We aren't, and we are.
Right.
Very well. But what are some of the other things what are some of the other main concepts or ideas in this upcoming book?
That's a great question, and I don't know if I can answer that without thinking about it a little further. But it's really about the changes with the seasons and how we are affecting that. From my perspective, mostly in negative ways. We are adapting, you're right, but I don't know if we are adapting in a way that's either felicitous or even survivable. But I figure the planet will survive even if we don't. So, anybody else with a question?
Yeah, I have a question. How do you carve out time to write, and how do you maintain your discipline to like finish something?
I'm terribly undisciplined. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
So usually I have to write from inspiration. It's hard for me to sit down. That's why I think sometimes the books come not from, okay, I'm going to write a book about this, but I write a bunch and then I see, like, there's another book, I was telling Vanessa before, this other book won a book poetry prize, and then the guy sent me an email, said, good news and bad news. He said, good news is your book won the prize and we'll send you the money. Bad news is that the university has pulled our funding, so we're not publishing your book. Mm-hmm. So, and that's typical of the poetry world, by the way, right?
Is that this book?
What?
This coming book?
No, it's another other one. And in that case, it's about, in your introduction, you referred to me as neurodivergent, which I am. Two ways. One is I have what's called temporal lobe epilepsy, and the other is sensory processing sensitivity, which is actually great if you're a poet, because you take in stuff in a very intense way. It's sometimes difficult. But with temporal lobe seizures are very subtle. Like what I just did could have been a seizure. You wouldn't know, in other words. It's just kind of like for a few seconds. But I always had the experience of being in this world and another one right next door, and was fascinated by that. So for me, it wasn't an issue. I mean, it's an issue, but it was. Some people are terrified of it.
What was it that you just said again? That you had the experience of
being here,
yes,
and being in another world right next door at the same time.
During those
flashes, yeah. And so a lot of my creative inspiration came from that. But then I had a larger seizure, and then they diagnosed that, which took a long time because they couldn't figure out anywhere in my brain that something was weird. And then they medicated me for it, which was horrible because they couldn't figure out what to do, and the medications for seizure disorders are the same as the medications for bipolar disorder, for manic depression. And I realized as a psychologist why people with bipolar disorder are the least compliant with their medication, because it takes your brain and goes. And so it was a struggle of probably a couple years to get them to reduce the dose enough so that I felt, I could access my creativity anymore. So that's the fourth section of the book, and then the last section of the book is about coming to acceptance of a new and altered reality. So that's that arc. But I didn't write them in order like that. I just wrote them over a period of time and said, this makes sense. This is a book. And put that one together and won a prize, and it isn't published.
When did that happen? And also, what is the thing when you saw me and you said you have something?
Oh, prosopagnosia, face blindness?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's related or not, but I think some of my friends here may know that if I run into you on the street and I don't say hello right away, it's because I don't recognize you. And that's called face blindness. And if you have it bad enough, if I looked at you, Serge, and then looked away and looked back at you, I wouldn't know who you were. So mine isn't that bad. And I don't think it's related neurocognitively to the other stuff, but I'm not sure.
That's really, but nobody's looked at the two together.
No. No.
Except you.
Except me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Any other questions or anything?
I think those, like Schnauzer, for example, is just addressing the intense frustration of our times, and to, you know, it matters so very much.
Yeah.
You know, and to then still celebrate.
To the degree that you can, right?
It's
Yeah.
just remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think that whole collection just brought that out very much.
Oh, good. Great. Yeah, I don't know about other people who meditate, but I'm finding it much harder lately because of everything that's going on. It's much harder to stay, you know, one pointed in with, what is it about all beings everywhere or whatever it is. Much harder.
Keep believing that it matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's essential, I think, in a way. Anyway, anybody else want to go outside and watch the kids run around? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.